It's the weekend and you have financial questions that need answering. That can only mean one thing. It's time for Jill on Money, the show that takes the mystery out of your finances. Here's your host, Jill Schlesinger.
Welcome, welcome. It's the Jill on Money Show. And yes, it is now the perfect opportunity for you to focus on you. You know, you got the kids ready. Maybe you packed them off to school. Maybe you did a beautiful vacation and you've thought through some things in your life and you'd like a little bit of counsel. Well, I have got a great idea for you. Mark and I are both certified financial planners and we can help you out. If something's going on and it remotely touches your money, all you need to do is go to our website, jillonmoney.com. And when you're there in the upper right-hand corner, you click the Contact Us button. You write your note. That's the email that we receive. And if you'd like to join us on the air live, just check that box. While you're on the website, for once and for all, please sign up for the free weekly newsletter. It comes out every Friday. You can't afford to miss this. All right, I'm just kidding. I know it's free, but it is chock full of really good information every single week. You can also subscribe to our service called Jill on Money Live. For $35, you'll have access to quarterly live webinars, special video content. I cannot highly recommend this enough. We've gotten wonderful feedback, so check it out. It's just $35, so let's not go crazy. All right, enough with the promotion of Jill on Money and the website and all of that. It is time to turn to our listeners. That's you guys. We are going to start the program with Mark, who's on the line from Washington, D.C.
So just kind of looking for a second opinion. Wanted to see, I'm getting up there in age, so wanted to see if we were on track. I'd love to retire in maybe 10 to 12 years.
Okay.
All of my forecasting tools and Monte Carlo simulators all say and seem to pan out. But
dude, are you like Mr. Do-It-Yourselfer? Because
yeah,
when you when you're like, oh, I got my Monte Carlo simulation, you know, you're not rolling the dice. You're just doing it.
I'm hands-on. Let's put it that way.
How old are you?
I am 49.
Married or single?
Married.
Okay. Spouse is how old?
She is 40.
40? Oh, yeah. Look at you going younger.
Younger.
Okay. You guys have some kids or no kids?
Yes, one son.
One son. How old?
He is toddler.
Toddler. Okay, gotcha.
Yep.
Are you both working full-time?
No, just me.
Okay. How much do you earn?
So on an annual basis, it's about $440 to $460, depending.
That's a nice number.
Yeah. Now, a bulk of that is, incentive, stock, et cetera.
Okay. Fair enough. But that's been consistent, like in the fours?
Yep.
Okay. And you're making contributions to a retirement plan based on that?
Yes. Maxing it out at $1,900 a month, plus there's a match, which equates to about $1,000
okay.
a month.
How much is in there? And is it pre-tax?
I've got a variety of accounts. I've got both pre-tax, kind of tax deferred, and then non-tax deferred.
Okay, let's do it. Let's go through the accounts. So Right now, this is a 401k that you have?
Yes, at the employer, it's a 401k.
Okay, and it's a traditional 401k. How much is in the traditional 401k?
So that's got a balance of about $291,000.
Okay, then what else do you have?
So then after that, I have two IRAs. One is $189,000, and then the other is about $67,000.
Are those both traditional?
Traditional. Mm-hmm.
Okay, 189 and 67, you said?
67.
Okay,
Yep.
What's next?
Then my wife has an IRA and a Roth, so we kind of, given our income, we do non-deductible contributions to the IRA, and then we backdoor it each year.
Okay.
So the total in that is about, let's call it $9,200.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
Then I have a 529,
mm-hmm.
and that's got $27,000 in it.
Okay, great.
So I think that's kind of all of the tax deferred.
And what about the money that you may have saved, like in a investment account? Do you have some money Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
So the non-tax deferred now,
Yep.
we have a brokerage. Well, they're all brokerage accounts. So brokerage number one, we have call it 413,000 in that one today.
Okay.
Then we have another brokerage account that's got 131,000.
Okay.
Then, you just your regular bank accounts, call that 5,000. And then a UTMA for $1,400.
Okay. House? Do you own a home?
House, yes.
What's it worth?
1,250 conservative.
1,250,000.
Yeah.
How about a mortgage? Any mortgage remaining?
Yeah, we got a 700,000 mortgage with roughly a $58,000 HELOC we used to do some renovations.
Okay. What's the rate on the 700,000?
2.75.
That's a good one. And that's a 30-year?
30-year fixed.
Great. And what about the HELOC? What's that running you right now?
It's a little over prime.
Okay. Got it. All right. So, a lot of accounts. Geez.
Accounts.
Anything else that I need to know about right now?
Yes. So, part of my work, I expect ongoing vestings, if you will.
Mm-hmm.
So
Tell me more about that. Like right now, is it a publicly traded company?
Yes.
Okay. What is the unvested value right now, total?
So the unvested value, for safe speaking, I would say about 140,000.
And how much vests each year, approximately?
It's probably, it's in a quarter each year.
Okay.
So maybe 40,000, 50,000 a year.
Okay. And so when that vests, I just want to understand, when does the tax get paid? Like, is that vest right as a vest? Okay, yes. I got you. Okay. Mm-hmm. And so if you've made money on it and you hold on to it for more than a year, it's long-term capital gains, but you get, okay. And what have you been doing with that money that is vested, that 40 or 50 grand a year?
Just saving it.
Okay. Because there's a part of me that's like, well, why do you have a HELOC?
Well, we literally just took it out to do some renovations, and we'll probably pay it off pretty soon. Okay.
So I don't have to worry about that, right? Because prime rate is still pretty high.
It is pretty high.
Okay. So what's the 10 to 12 years, 62-ish, will you be entitled to any pension benefit?
No pension, but Social Security, I would, at 67, I would be entitled to $3,800.
We'll get back to Mark in just a moment. If you've got a financial question, just go to our website, JillOnMoney.com, and click the Contact Us button. Let us know if you'd like to come on the air live. Don't forget to check out our subscription service called Jill on Money Live. For $35, you'll have access to quarterly live webinars and the whole back catalog. So check it out. It's Jill on Money. We'll be right back.
Do I invest here? Should I put my money there? Jill Schlesinger can help you. Back to Jill on Money.
You're back. It's Jill on Money, and we are here trying to help you make better financial decisions, sometimes less bad ones. And it really does not matter where you are in your life. You could be just starting out, or maybe getting back on your feet after a divorce, or something bad has happened, or something good has happened. All these things are happening in your life, and they are often impacting your financial life. If you need some assistance, we'd love to be there for you. Both Mark and I are certified financial planners, and we love hearing your stories and helping helping you figure out what's the best plan that lies ahead. Maybe not even the best. Maybe it's just a myriad of paths that you could take. And you want to know, well, what happens if I go down one versus another? All of these things are totally in our wheelhouse. Okay. So if you'd like to put something on our radar screen that's maybe been bothering you, or maybe just you need a little boost, give us a holler. Go to JillOnMoney.com, click the Contact Us button, and of course, let us know if you'd be willing to come on the air live. While you're on the website, you've got to check out all the content that lives there. We've got 2 podcasts, we've got a blog, we've got videos, we've got my books, and there's a resources section. So lots of stuff for you to devour, a lot of free stuff, a little bit of paid stuff. You know, you'll check it out. Anyway, let's get back to Mark from Washington, D.C. How much you guys spend every year? Like, this is a great story so far. 450 grand a year is a real number. You live in a high cost of living area. Yeah, I get that. But how much do you think you spend? What do the expenses look like?
Yeah, I just kind of simply pulled up our banking software and said, look, give me my last 12 months. So on average, it's probably about $20,000 a month. But that includes kind of all the savings contributions.
Can you back that out? Can you back out the savings, like what it really is?
Yeah.
Like, is it more like 15?
Yeah, it's probably more like 15-ish without the savings.
Okay. And when you retire in 10 to 12 years, you want to be done, or you want to be able to do something else?
I would probably work part-time, maybe.
Okay. Are you putting money on an ongoing basis into the 529 plan?
Yes, $650 a month.
Okay. And I know this is like really, I'm getting right into your getting up into your kitchen, as my friend Maureen used to say. Second child?
I mean, there's talk of it, but, you know, it's
something has to happen. You can't just talk about it.
I mean, I'm getting up there, so.
All right. Well, but it's possible. It's second child is possible.
Yeah,
okay.
It's possible.
Have you guys ever thought, I mean, so you have a lot of accounts all over the place. So what's with the 2 different brokerage accounts? Do you label them as something different? Are they earmarked for something?
No, we have an advisor. So the one holds my company stock and the other is just kind of and he doesn't charge a fee on that one.
Okay.
And then the other one is managed. So that's really.
Okay. So you work with an advisor, even though you're doing your own Monte Carlo simulation.
Yeah.
The brokerage account is what's being managed plus the 2 IRAs?
Correct.
How much you pay for that?
It's about 1%.
That's not bad.
No.
Do you like this person?
Oh, yeah. The returns he's gotten us is phenomenal.
Are they doing planning for you?
Yes. He also does planning for us.
Great. Perfect. Okay, that's good.
Yeah.
So you have an advisor, you're a do-it-yourselfer. Dare I ask this question? What do you need us for?
Well, I just want a second opinion and see what you guys thought. So here's, another question is, the models suggest doing a Roth conversion at some point in the future.
Yes.
And that would reduce our IRMA or eliminate the IRMA, would eliminate the RMDs.
Yeah.
But then I listened to your show and there's been, a lot of talk about, the opportunity cost for, paying the tax versus investing the amount of the tax. You would kind of get to the same place maybe.
Well, you're not going to do it now, right?
No, not
and
now.
so
Absolutely
you don't have to freak about this. This is what I think, Mark. I think maybe let's see where tax rates are in 10 years. You're going to be making 600 grand in 10 years. You know what I mean? So it would be a total game day decision on that. Okay. I mean, when you look at this, so let's say you do a Roth or you don't do a Roth, it doesn't matter. You're putting a lot of money away. You're saving a lot of money. Your advisor and the models tell you that you're on track, right?
Correct.
Okay. And is your advisor telling you on that annual vesting to sell it immediately and then invest it?
No, I've told them I want to hold it for at least another couple of years.
I don't get that. Why? Tell me more about that. Why?
It'll probably go up in value.
What if it doesn't?
It's very likely it would.
I don't know. I don't want to fight with you about this, but I honestly, Mark, I don't know. But okay, whatever. You know better. So I would be thinking about using that vesting every year and popping that right into the 529 plan. Stop with the $650 a month. You and your wife should be just putting money into the 529 plan in a more aggressive way, because you sound like you're an educated dude, and it's probably something that's important to you. So, you can put away a good chunk of money, and I think that's a good way to do it. But if you don't want to do that and you want to put, you want to chip away at it, that's fine too. You're saving a bunch of money, and that's great. I think they just keep testing it. I mean, I think you're on the right track. I can't say for sure that something weird doesn't happen in the next 10 or 12 years that puts you on your back feet, your back foot. But I mean, it seems pretty good. Mark, do you want to jump in and give me what you think?
I was just curious, once the child is in, preschool or daycare or whatever, does your wife have any plans about going back to work?
We've talked about that, and she said maybe.
Although I guess another kid would complicate that.
Exactly.
It would complicate that. There you go.
I think if she wants that kid, you're done. So there you go. So that's that. Let's move on, Mark. We're not. That's not happening. If he has another kid, that's all. So I mean, I think you are on the right track. You are. Okay, but I wouldn't get. I honestly would just not get too cute with this. Yeah. And I hear, a little bit of well, I don't have to sell this because the stock is going up, which absolutely may happen and may not. And so I would just like to point out that I have heard things like this from many people. Some of them worked at a company called Lehman Brothers.
I know.
Some of them worked at companies that in the late 90s and early 2000s don't exist anymore. Right. Some of them happened to retire at the wrong time when their company stock price was lower. So I would just caution you to not get too clever in this. It sounds to me like you're on the right track. You got a good advisor. The numbers look good. I'm good with that. That's awesome. It's totally great, So I don't want you to think that I'm not saying you are not in good shape. I'm really not. I'm just saying I'd like you to just kind of take a deep breath and try not to outsmart yourself. Okay. Yeah. And are you nervous about any of this, or you feel okay?
No, I mean, we're pretty heavily concentrated on the, company stock, and, my advisor and I have talked about that, and, we've devised a strategy around reducing our concentration. Yeah. So
that means you have to pay the tax, right?
Right. All right. Exactly.
I'm just kidding you, man.
No,
look, I think that you are. Look, you're in good shape. I think you know that. I love that you like kind of checking in with us, but it seems like you're in a good place. Pay off that HELOC. I don't know. I just looked up the prime rate. It's at 8.5%. That's just like a lot of money, and you have money. So, I don't know. That seems like a bad use of your money right there, So let's get rid of that. And maybe think about putting more money in the 529 as lump sums. And otherwise, I think you're in very good shape and you're ready to rock and roll. Don't do anything crazy. Okay.
Excellent.
Delay to claim till age 70. Put that in your model.
70. Okay.
70. Okay.
All right.
If you would like to run a scenario bias to find out if you're on track to reach your delineated financial goals, then give us a holler. Go to JillOnMoney.com and click the Contact Us button. Now, if you'd like to join us live, just check that box. Mark will do everything else. It's really great when you do come on the air. We can ask follow-up questions. But if you're shy, that's okay too. We'll read the emails. It's the Jill on Money Show. We'll be right back.
Back to Jill on Money, where Jill Schlesinger helps you take the mystery out of your finances.
You're back. It's the Jill on Money Show. This is the program that takes the mystery out of your financial life. Right now, let's read this email. It's from Javier, who is writing about a subject, RMD. Isn't that great? Here's the message. Please do a topic show or interview about required minimum distributions. I know they exist, but what else? How is the RMD determined? Why do they matter? What are the tax consequences of getting an RMD in retirement? And is it all that bad? Okay, so first of all, thank you. Teed that up beautifully. I went to Ed Slott and Company's website, IRAhelp.com, because I wanted to know a little bit of the background. And, you know, interestingly, that IRAs were created back in 1974. And that was the beginning of the concept of required minimum distributions. And according to this website, they do all the linking, that when we had the law that established IRAs and as part of ERISA, the Employee Retirement Income Security Act, it did actually give you information about, hey, you've got to take money out of this account. Now, remember, the point of a required minimum distribution is that the money you have put into a retirement account pre-tax has not yet been taxed. The government wants to actually get a piece of your action, meaning they want to get paid the taxes that they are owed. It's not this crazy, like, oh, it's so unfair that I'm getting my money. Like you avoided taxes. You have to actually pay those taxes before you die. So this is where the basics of the required minimum distribution come into play. So how is this determined? Well, there is an actuarial aspect of this. What do we mean by that? What we mean is that when you are looking at the requirement and the amount, the government says, what is the likelihood you live till a certain period of time, that life expectancy? We are going to force you to take a withdrawal from that account and pay the tax that's due on that income. Again, it hasn't been taxed yet. So if you look at life expectancy, I'll give you an idea of this. Let's just say that you're 72 years old right now. There is a life expectancy, according to the government, of another 27 years. That's a long time. I didn't realize that, Mark. That's a long time. And therefore, so that the government will get the money out that is pulled out of that account a little bit at a time, they say, we are going to force you to take 3.65% of your total pre-tax money out of that account so that we can get a taxable portion in play. So you take $100 out. We're going to just add that $100 to your income at your age 72, and you're going to get taxed at whatever rate you're at. And every year, the percentage of the account balance that has to be withdrawn for your required minimum distribution will go up. So again, let's say, you got a whole bunch of money that has not yet been taxed, and you're now, I don't know, let's call it 80 years old or so, 80, 81 years old. The government's going to say you got to take 5% of that account value out. Whatever that amount is will be added to your taxable income, whatever income tax bracket you're at that time, that money gets added to it, and you pay the tax that's due. That's it. It's actually not that complicated. The government says, take some of the money out, add it to your income, we're going to tax you. Now, there's a couple of caveats. One is that if you're still working at a company, not with an IRA, but if you're working at a company, you've got your money in a 401k, you've got your money in a 403b. If you're still working, you do not have to take the required minimum distribution. It's only when you retire. So that's another kind of a fun thing, which is I know somebody who essentially stopped working, had moved money out of a retirement account into an IRA rollover. She gets to be 68 years old. She gets another job. She took all of the money in her IRA account that had not yet been taxed, rolled it into her next company's 401k plan. She just retired again at age 74, but she didn't have to take any required minimum distributions because she was still working. Now the clock will start ticking, of course, but it's kind of a cool thing. So I want to make sure I got to this. So how is the RMD determined? It's based on your life expectancy and how much money you have in the account. They matter because it can actually push your income higher when you're forced to take money out, and the tax consequences can vary based on whatever's going on in your life. All right. I hope that helps, Javier.
By the way, how do you avoid an RMD if you want to? Use a Roth.
The other thing is, just one other thing about an RMD. There is one other way to avoid it. Mark's right. There is a Roth. But if you're over the age of 70 and a half and you've got a slew of cash that's in an IRA account, you can do a qualified charitable distribution. You can take up to $100,000 in a given year from your pre-tax IRA account, send it directly to a charity, and that can satisfy your required minimum distribution, and you can actually be charitable at the same time. So you won't have to pay tax on that money. You don't get the money, but you don't have to pay tax on it. I kind of like that. All right. Marianne says, where can you invest the money from an RMD if I don't need it right now? I'm looking for liquidity. Oh, this is so interesting because I think a lot of people have this where you're very fortunate, right? You've got a bunch of money. It's in a retirement account. You're forced to take the money out, right? 3.5%, 4%, 5%, 6%. That money comes out. What you can't do is you cannot use that as a contribution into your another retirement account. That's number one. But what you can do is you can just put it in a general investment account. And so if you're looking for liquidity, especially for money you think you'll need in the next couple of years, then just put it in a short-term CD or maybe like a 1 year or 2 year CD. But if you really don't need the money at all and you do want liquidity, you can just add it to a brokerage account. It's not that hard to do. I think that's worth thinking about. If you've got a question for us, just go to JillOnMoney.com and click the Contact Us button. It's the Jill on Money Show, and we'll be right back.
If you've missed any part of the show or want to check out a past show, go to JillOnMoney.com for more great personal finance content.
You're back. It's the Jill on Money Show, and we are here trying to help you make better or less bad or prudent financial decisions. Now, some of you have contacted us and I think somewhat sheepishly say, well, I have an advisor, but I want to run this by you. That's fine. We are not here to try to capture that business. We're trying to help you use these relationships in a more positive way. And if we think that you don't need the advisor, that may be one thing to consider, but maybe you do need an advisor and you want to make sure you've got the right kind of person for you. Whatever the case may be, we'd love to help you out. Just go to the website, JillOnMoney.com, and click the Contact Us button. While you're on the website, you can check out all the content that lives there. We refresh it all the time. And when I say we, I mean Mark Talercio, greatest executive producer in the whole wide world. So he does all the heavy lifting. I do a lot of the writing, but he does the putting it on the website. Okay, right now, let's take an email. This is from Brad, who says, I really enjoy listening to your content. I always learn something. I'm 32 years old and recently just changed jobs. Congratulations. Brad works in healthcare, and he says, what should I do with the money in my 401k from my old job? It's around $150,000. Should I leave it in the old account? Should I try to roll it over into my new 401k? In basic terms, having one account would be easier to manage for me, but are there any disadvantages or penalties in combining? Okay, this is important, gang, because Brad says, I prefer the investment options in my new 401k account, which is offered through Fidelity, over the old choices, but the expense ratios are slightly higher with Fidelity. If I don't roll over my new 401k, are there other options to maximize earnings on that retirement money, or should I just leave it where it is? Okay, Brad, 3 big choices every time you change a job. One is to leave it there. One is to roll it over directly into your new plan. And the third is to roll it into an IRA rollover account where you will control how the money is invested. Given what you've told us, though, you're young, 32. I like the idea, like you do, of like, let's just make this easy and keep the money in a single account. I would do a direct rollover from the old job to the new job. And in terms of the fees, One way to keep the expenses down is that when you're working with the new 401k, just choose index funds. Don't have to choose the managed funds. And if you do that, I think there is going to be a kind of a lid on the fees that you are paying. The other thing is that if you are the kind of person who could potentially do a backdoor Roth IRA, having the money in a 401k can allow that to occur. If you move the money into an IRA rollover, then it is not as easy to do a backdoor Roth. So that's what we're thinking. Those are your three options. And if this is actually already Roth money to Roth money, then make sure you do that. And maybe in the new plan, you should use a Roth because you're young and time is on your side, brother. Okay, let's see. Next up. Oh, this is a good one. This is from Daniel, who said, I have over $360,000 in savings. Oh, my God. I own my own home, $900,000 in value. I have $600,000 in an IRA. So best way to invest $100,000. So if you're looking to invest some money for the babies, the grandbabies and the kids, I'd talk to them about opening a 529 plan. I think that would be great, actually. And that's a wonderful way. I don't know how many there are, but follow up with us and we'll give you some other ideas if that doesn't work. This is from Kay, who writes, Dear Jill and Mark, big fan of the pod. Really, all caps, appreciate the service that you provide. Okay. As my husband and I are approaching retirement, we are allocating $100,000 in several house projects next year. One of the projects that we're debating is installing solar panels on the roof. This is my husband's dream project, but I'm not quite convinced. Oh my God. Now, the thing that's interesting is that Kay says, I would rather trade in our old cars for a hybrid car and traveling more. That would be helpful, right? The solar panel project cost $27,000 with a $7,000 rebate. Okay. So it would cost them $20,000. The vendor claims it will take 12 years to make it work, right? The system would be less and less efficient after 20 years. Or we could trade in our 2018 Subaru for the latest hybrid RAV4, which would also become less and less efficient as the mileage builds up. No kidding, it's a car. Cost of the new RAV4, $40,000. Which project is the better use of the limited budget that we have? I would say this. I want to know more about you. That's a big push. Sorry, Kay. I want to know if you're approaching retirement. First of all, you said you had $100,000 allocated. So this is not 100, right? This is 40 and 20. But I want to know, like, do you have enough money really to be doing either of these things? How important is it for you to do these projects that would be, I think that sometimes we do projects that are like make our lives better and some of them that will make our lives like prettier. So I want to know what this is all used for. I want to know how much money you have. What does this $100,000 represent as your total retirement? In general, I'm probably leaning more towards like, hey, it's a 2018 car, right? So 18, 19, 20. So it's a 7-year-old car. Is it running okay? Is it fine? I'm all into like driving that car into the ground. I want to know more. If you've got a question for us, just go to our website, which I know you've bookmarked by now, JillOnMoney.com. In the upper right-hand corner is a Contact Us button. Click that button and a form will pop up. The Jill on Money Show will be right back. You're back. It's Jill on Money, and we are here answering financial questions for you. Now, if you've got one, just go to our website, JillOnMoney.com, click the Contact Us button, and we will get your note. If you'd like to join us on the air live, check the box. Mark will do everything else. Of course, we love to get your emails. It's just that I don't get to ask as many follow-up questions. But okay, let's do an email right now. This is from Carrie, who says, "Can you help me determine how much long-term disability my wife and I need? I make $305,000 and she makes $80,000, so likely we would only need to cover my salary. My current employer's long-term disability covers up to $100,000. How much additional coverage do you suggest?" We don't usually get disability insurance questions, and I think it's because so many people are covered through work and they're not really focused on it. Kind of like the boss is paying for it. I hope I don't become disabled. Okay, moving on. But the disability coverage that people receive is quite valuable, and it often, for at least higher income earners, would not cover what is traditionally thought of as like the standard calculation for disability insurance, which is if I were to become disabled and not be able to perform my job, then I'd want 2/3 of my salary covered, about that, 60-70%. But the coverage is often capped, as we see in this question, at some lower amount, especially if you're a higher wage earner. So what do? You can go out into the marketplace and find disability coverage. Now, I would do this maybe with somebody who is a fiduciary, but if you're just talking to an agent, just know that there's probably going to be some limitation that the company imposes. So in this particular case, if I'm making $305,000 a year, I'd be trying to get an additional $100,000 of coverage. You'll have to tell them about what you get through work, but you're trying to cover 60 to 70% of what your salary is in the event, the unfortunate event, of becoming disabled. I hope that helps. Don't be shy. If you've got follow-up questions, get back in touch with us. For everyone else, if you've got questions about disability or any other kind of insurance, go to JillOnMoney.com. It's the Jill on Money Show, and we'll be right back.
It's the weekend, and that can only mean one thing. You're listening to Jill on Money, the show that takes the mystery out of your finances. Here's your host, Jill Schlesinger.
Welcome back. It's hour number 2 of the Jill on Money Show. I am your host, Jill Schlesinger, and I am here to try to help you take the mystery out of your financial life. And you know, it is sort of the beginning of the school year, the academic year. So Mark and I thought it would be really fun to bring you a guest who can help educate you on one area of your life that you probably haven't focused on, and that is your understanding of the economy. And we were recently able to interview a young woman who has incredible depth of knowledge about the economy. She's written a book called In This Economy, How Money and Markets Really Work. Her name is Kyla Scanlon. And this hour, we are going to help you understand not only what's going on in the economy, but also to understand how the younger generation thinks about that economy. It's really fascinating, and she is great. Here is the first part of our interview with Kyla Scanlon. I want to talk first about a little bit about you. How would you describe yourself in terms of your training or your background? You wrote a book about the economy. Were you an economics major?
Yeah. So I grew up in Kentucky, and I went to Western Kentucky University, full ride, got super lucky with getting that. And when I got to school, I didn't even know that you could major in finance. I was going to be an engineer. But what was funny about that part of the journey is that I had been options trading in high school, but didn't know that this was a whole corporate life. And so once I realized that what I had been doing in high school was essentially a major, I switched over into econ and finance and data analytics. I kept a blog all throughout college called Scanlon on Stocks, where I talked about my options trading journey and all the money I lost. And then I went to work for Capital Group out in Los Angeles after I graduated. And so I have quite a bit of background in econ and in finance, and then have always just really loved explaining things. I've always wanted to be a teacher. And so I've kind of indirectly tried to do that through social media. And now I've had the wonderful opportunity to write this book and share it with people.
That's so awesome. Now, my first job on Wall Street, I was an options trader on the floor of the commodities exchange. I traded gold, silver, and copper options. Wow. And I loved when people like you were entering the options market. Seriously. That was the best. That's so mean
No,
to
it's
say.
True. No, it's real. It's real. Yeah.
So why? So I did, of course I picked up on this. And so why did you trade options? I mean, how is it that you stumbled upon this? Did you know someone in an industry that would have introduced you to it? Like, how did this happen?
So my dad was doing this options trading journey through tastytrade, and I saw him doing it, and I was like, what's going on there? And he was like, you're gonna have to learn it yourself. And I was like, okay, that sounds cool. And so I learned through this group called tastytrade, and then got like parental approval on my account. And then I did paper trading as well. So I practiced a lot of things. And then I was always nervous when it came to real money, which is why I think I'm not an investor and instead talk about markets.
So when you were trading, so paper trading was always a fun thing, because I'll tell you, like when I started, we started out as clerks on the floor of the commodities exchange. And then we would all do paper trading. In other words, we would keep track, like, here's the trade I would make if I were there right now. And then you'd be like, oh my God, look at how much money I would have made. And of course, there is a vast difference between putting something down on paper and having the feeling of either the euphoria of earning or making money or the agony of losing. And so the transition from paper trading to being a real trader is pretty important. So what did you learn in the transition?
I learned that I am pretty risk averse, that I preferred paper trading. And for me, like, it was just like, okay, like, I don't really need to be trading options. Like, I can just throw my money into an ETF and be okay. So that was like my path, was realizing that is not a lifestyle for me. And if it works for other people, that's great, but not for me. Yeah.
And you know what? It only took me 3.5 years to figure that out. You figured it out very quickly.
Yes. Yeah.
So when you talk to people, and I'm not saying, I mean, it's weird. I feel like some people are like, she's the one to talk to young people, but no, this is for everybody.
Thanks.
What is the critical problem in the way that we're communicating economic information to the masses? I mean, this is really helpful to me, because when I go on CBS News and I'm talking to millions of people, what is it that we're getting wrong? What are people not understanding?
I spent an extraordinary amount of time thinking about this. So I travel quite a bit for work right now. And so I've been able to like go to a bunch of cities. Like I was just in DC, just in Miami, and I talked to a lot of people there. And like oftentimes they're not aware of certain policies that have been passed, or like they're not aware of like how inflation actually impacts them, other than like making things more expensive. And I don't know if it's like a foundational economic knowledge level. Like we don't really have required economics in school. And so it's kind of a lot to expect that people will understand econ without having access to the knowledge, which is like part of the reason that I wrote that book. Hopefully, anybody that wants it can understand it. But then I also think, like there is a little bit of confusion with media. Like media has a really hard job where they're trying to explain these huge economic concepts in the light of economic news. And that's really difficult. And then I think the third thing is economics is an incredibly personal experience, right? Like everybody has a personal inflation rate. Everybody has a personal experience with the labor market. And so we oftentimes talk in aggregates and averages and medians. And for a regular person, they're like, but that's not my story. And so it's really tough, because I think we're missing out on the foundational level of economics education. I think media sometimes can exacerbate issues that have existed since the beginning of time. And then I think number two, people struggle parsing things from averages.
Yeah. And I think that that's such a great point, that people don't live their lives remembering that before the pandemic, prices did go up every year. Unless something horrible was happening, the prices went up every year. So do you think that that's valuable, just to reiterate where we have been? Or do you think people are like, I don't care where we were, I care where I am now?
Yeah, no, I don't think people care, but I think it's really valuable. I think that there's sort of almost a memory block from pre-pandemic times. Like people are like, that's not real. I don't even remember what it was like before lockdown. But I think it is useful to like look back at that and be like, well, you know, certain things are better, like wages are growing, like inflation is going down, right? But yeah, I think people are very focused on the present moment. And then the other tough part about that is that people are more focused on the short term than the long term, right? And so like you could talk about things are trending in the right direction, but if they're not fixed by tomorrow, it's kind of like, well, why are you telling me about it?
Right.
You know?
We'll get back to our interview with Kyla Scanlon in just a minute. Now, if you've got a financial question or something's going on in the economy that's really mystifying you, we encourage you to go to our website, JillOnMoney.com. Click the Contact Us button, write us a note, and let us know if you would be willing to come on the air live. You know, as you'll hear in this hour, so much of what is going on does impact our lives. And we really want to take the mystery out of those big words and concepts that seem so out of reach. Because that's what we do here at Jill on Money. We try to demystify your financial life. And we'll be right back.
Do I invest here? Should I put my money there? Jill Schlesinger can help you. Back to Jill on Money.
You're back. It's Jill on Money, the program that attempts to take the mystery out of your financial life. We do that by encouraging you to go to our website, JillOnMoney.com, clicking the Contact Us button, completing a form, and asking a question to give you some guidance. And that's what we do. Mark and I are both certified financial planners. We love doing this every single week. Right now, we are going to get back to our interview with Kyla Scanlon. Her book is called In This Economy: How Money and Markets Really Work. And in this next part of the interview, Kyla's going to explain how personal experiences impact how we feel, despite what economic reports are saying. Here's the next part of our interview with Kyla Scanlon. And also, as you said, it's like my personal experience. This would always seem to come down to, well, I don't make that much money. So it's all well and good that like your stocks are up, but I don't have investments. And 3/4 of my income is going to cover these massive categories of, let's call it housing, transportation, and food. And so like, stop talking about the interest rates or anything like that. Like how do you break through to someone like that to understand that all of this is interrelated? And as you say, it comes down to you because how we feel also can influence the economy, right?
Yeah. How people feel really matters because it shapes their behaviors. Like expectations ultimately shape behavior. This is something I've had a lot of time spent thinking about. Like the first chapter of the book is around the economic kingdom, where I try to talk about the interrelatedness between inflation and the labor market and GDP and the Federal Reserve and fiscal policy and the dollar. But I think it's like very abstract. Like the economy is extremely abstract. There are a lot of moving pieces. Even as somebody who like thinks about it every day, I still am like, what's going on? And so I think it's just useful to reiterate like how the interconnectivity works. But most of the time people they want to hear how it impacts them. And I think we've kind of left people to a disadvantaged point because the main way to build wealth in the U.S. is through real estate, right? And so like when you're talking about the stock market as you were, and people not feeling like they're participating in that, it's like, well, why aren't they? Like, how can we get more people involved in the stock market and not be reliant on the value of their home skyrocketing, right? I think there's like causes and symptoms that are difficult to address.
Do you think that the idea that how you feel and that how you may act around this, does it really influence the economy? And here's what I'm going to say. When I'm so old that, I used to have bosses who would say, I don't look at consumer sentiment. I could not care less. I only care what they do.
Sure.
And so and I'm sure that, you can talk to a million people and we all complain about prices, but if we're still spending, regardless of the complaints, what uses it to really think about how we're feeling?
Yeah, I think that's been the big question. A lot of people have been like, people are spending a ton of money, but they're saying that they're feeling so bad. And I think now, like, we're starting to see delinquency rates begin to tick up. We're seeing savings begin to drop. And it's sort of like, I think sentiment is more of an indicator toward the future. Like, people are feeling bad, but they're still going to be spending money, at least in the short term. But in the long term, like, this sentiment downturn could be problematic. What's sort of funny about that, though, is that sentiment has ticked up at least a little bit. It's up, I think, 6% from this time last year, even considering the circumstances I just described. But I think it's just like the way that we oftentimes talk about the economy can sort of leave people out of it. Like, we do talk about it in a really abstract way, like inflation is up and this is what's happening. And I think just storytelling is really important there, because I think how people feel does matter. And like the more stories that we can tell about how people feel, like hopefully that'll help them feel better. So it might not be a one-to-one relationship with like actual economic impact, but I think for the long term, it's really important.
So when you are when you're doing all of the stuff that you put out there and you get responses to it, do people come after you when you say things like, well, the inflation rate is improving? They're like, oh, but prices are still high. Like, do people come after you to almost complain that not for me, or are they just thank you so much for explaining it?
Yeah, I mean, it's a mix of both. Yeah. So I'm for some people, I am a projection of their imagination that they are going to lobby every insult at me possible.
How could they? You're so nice.
But,
Come on.
I'm not real, I'm somebody on their screen.
Right.
And so I just become like this figurative being that is telling them that things are good when maybe their circumstances are not. And so they're like, this person is lying and I'm going to say horrible things to them. But then I have people who are like, thank you for explaining what an inflation rate is and why that's different than, price levels. So it's, this, like the internet is a cesspool. It's a mix of both. Yeah.
I know, but I'm feeling very protective of you. Like, don't be mean to Kyla. She's awesome. If because also I also feel like what happens in my world, again, like oldster world, like I'm an old certified financial planner and I've been doing this. So I will get a question from someone like a niece, nephew age person for me, which would be like your age. And they'll say like, I saw something on TikTok, and I'm like, that's garbage. Like that's my first reaction. But I do think that it's very hard to parse out the Kylas and the Jills, if I may put myself in your camp,
sure,
from other people who are saying trash on social media, but that people are consuming that trash. I don't know how to break through that.
Yeah, you can't, right? There's it's really difficult because like the way to go viral is to like lie and to say extremist things and to be like, BlackRock is going to eat your family in the middle of the night. Like that's like how you go viral on TikTok. Right. Because we're humans, and so our human brains are like, oh my gosh, I have to protect myself against this. Like BlackRock's going to eat my family. And so it's much easier to game the algorithm that way. If you're telling the truth about things, and if you're just trying to explain things in objective, like nuanced manner, that doesn't always go as far. And so you're just competing against, the human bias, but then you're also competing against everything in the world ever, which is like everything on media. And yeah, the algorithms are just, they're rage bait.
The American dream always centered on like this rigid,
like the nuclear family,
right?
Yeah.
But like just this rigid definition. What should a new definition of the American dream be?
Yeah, I mean, I think like what I'm seeing from people around my age, so like mid to late 20s, who are sort of inheriting the American dream is like a desire to travel, like going and seeing other parts of the world, going beyond just your four corners. I think that there's a desire to save money. There's also a desire to like not wait for retirement. So like the American dream is probably accumulating enough wealth in the near term that you can like spend in the near term. Like you're not constantly working. There's a little bit more flexibility between work and life. And you're able to travel, spend time with friends, whatever. It's interesting because I think the American dream is becoming more individualistic, which I don't know if it's a good or bad thing. It's just a thing. I think that the children are part of some people's American dream, but people aren't having kids at the rate that they used to. They're not getting married at the rate that they used to, but they are traveling, right? Like they are trying to spend time with friends. They're like joining run clubs to find community. And so I think it's sort of the hero's journey has become the American dream.
We'll get back to our interview with Kyla Scanlon in just a minute. Now, if you've got a question that is burning or is keeping you up at night, or you just need a little bit of assistance thinking through your financial priorities, get in touch with us. Go to JillOnMoney.com, click the Contact Us button. Let us know if you'd like to come on the air live. Don't forget to check out our subscription service called Jill on Money Live. For $35, you'll have access to quarterly live webinars, cool bonus video content, and the whole back catalog. So check it out. It's Jill on Money. We'll be right back.
Back to Jill on Money, where Jill Schlesinger helps you take the mystery out of your finances.
You're back. It's Jill on Money. This is the program that's trying to help you make better or less bad financial decisions. If you've got something going on in your life and it touches your money, get in touch with us. Go to JillOnMoney.com. Click the Contact Us button, write a note, and if you'd like to join us live, just check that box and we'll bring you on. While you're on the website, don't forget to check out our YouTube show. It's called Jill on Money, powered by The Compound. A lot of fun over there at The Compound, so please check that out. Totally free, by the way. Okay, right now we are going to get back to our interview with Kyla Scanlon. She's the author of a book called In This Economy, How Money and Markets Really Work. And in this segment, we are talking about the pressure that we put on ourselves, unnecessarily so. Here's more of our interview with Kyla Scanlon. It doesn't have to be that you own a home. I mean, this is the other part of it, which is like you put that pressure on yourself if you've gotten that messaging. We hear so many times from like on our podcast, we get people who come on the air with us and we just talk about we like spitball their financial lives. Okay. And so many people are like, well, I'm trying to buy a house. And I'm like, don't try so hard. It's not okay. It's okay. Like you don't have to own a home to be successful. And also, as you said, you can redefine what your life is like. I'm wondering if all of the things that we think are happening now as a result, right? We've just come out of COVID. It still is early days. That, are you more in the camp of, you know what? Life regresses to the mean. We'll get back to where we were. Or do you think something substantial has really changed for a generation of people who come of age amid the COVID era?
I'm not sure. I mean, I think that there's an immense amount of uncertainty right now, just politically, like what that could mean. I also think the state of work is changing, like, AI and what that could do. That'll probably change the American dream to a certain extent. I think I wrote a piece for Fast Company a year ago talking about like how Gen Z works. And the big idea was that work is changing and like the American dream is changing. And this is probably a moment of change. And like, there's always a internal part of you that's like, oh, things sort of stay the same forever. Right. But I do think that post-COVID, post-Great Recession, post-internet bubble, there is an inherent amount of distrust, a lot of nihilism, and that is potentially going to result in a quote unquote rebellion from traditional institution.
You end the book, it's your last line of the book, which I highlighted. People are the economy, so let's make the economy about people. What do you mean by that?
It's sort of what we were talking about earlier, like how people feel really matters. I think that, as I said, we talk about the economy in abstract terms, and we don't oftentimes center people in these economic conversations. Some people do, but like not a lot of people. And I think that the more that we can remember that like workers are the economy, that like working parents, like parents in general, just sort of kids, like human capital is the most prominent in a child, which sounds really creepy to say, but it's true. It's like, I think that we just have to refocus on a component of our economy that we've ignored for a long time, which is people. Like wage growth was stagnant up into the pandemic, which is kind of bizarre considering how much people actually work and do for the world. And I think we've over-financialized certain aspects of the stock market, which bleeds into the economy. And I just think, it's very idealistic, and I worry that I sound Pollyanna with it sometimes, but I just think the more that we can focus on people, ideally, the better economic circumstances we can end up with.
But, and the other part of this, I remember one of my first interviews with an economist, Diane Swank.
She's the best.
Isn't she awesome?
Yeah.
So I said, we were like in the studio, and I'm like, why do you do this? Like this thing called economics. She says, look, I got into economics because I love the idea that we could craft public policy to help people. And she said, and then all of a sudden it became like just talking about stuff in the economy to help shareholders. Yeah. And she said, and like, that's not why I got into this.
Right.
And I think that there's, we have a misstep, and there's like a missing piece that like part of the whole practice or science, soft science of economics was to say, how do we craft policy to help the people who build the economy? And I do think that oftentimes, if you turn on financial media, we lose that piece.
Yeah.
We just absolutely lose it. So let's go back in time for a second. Let's go all the way back to 2020 and 2021. And if you look at the policy and the economics of the decisions that were made, which were made in like, come on, gang, let's just be honest. It was a once in a century pandemic. We did not know what was going to happen. So the idea that two different administrations said, let's pour money into people's pockets. The economy is frozen. In retrospect, was that the right, if you were going to make an error, was that the right error to make, or would the right error maybe have been give a little bit less money, risk that it took longer to get out of a rut, more people might have suffered, but we wouldn't have as much inflation?
I mean, this is like a weird thing to say, but like COVID was the greatest natural experiment that we could have asked for. Obviously, like it came with great tragedy, but you can actually look over to Europe and see what would have happened if we hadn't given out the checks that we'd given. You'd still end up with inflation, but you'd end up with an economy that can't fix the inflation because people are in such dire straits. Europe has its own set of issues and have had issues for a long time, but I think the United States saved itself because of fiscal policy. And a lot of people don't like, the government spending. They're like, oh my gosh, why would the government spend money when I pay taxes? Like, it's like, that's why you pay taxes. But I think that it was one of the best things that we could have done because it was such a time of uncertainty for people. Just knowing that they were safe, I think actually prevented further issues. I think we still have a social unstructuring that's going on, but that's more from a ideology angle versus a desperation angle.
We've got one more segment with Kyla, so stick around. If something is going on in your financial life, just give us a holler. Go to JillOnMoney.com and click the Contact Us button. Hey, while you're there, don't forget to sign up for the free weekly newsletter. It comes out every Friday, a great tune-up for this weekend program. So the free weekly newsletter, just sign up at JillOnMoney.com. Just bookmark it. It's so much easier. It's the Jill on Money Show, and we'll be right back.
If you've missed any part of the show or want to check out a past show, go to JillOnMoney.com for more great personal finance content.
You're back. It's Jill on Money. Let's conclude our interview with Kyla Scanlon. I was just laughing. I was talking to a friend of mine who is a doctor. And he's like, I'm commuting 5 days a week. And all my friends who work on Wall Street, they're in like 3 days a week, but they're the same people who are pounding on the table saying, our workers have to be in 5 days a week. Like, why are people so struck by the fact that we don't want to be in an office 5 days a week? That's number one. And number two, do you sense that from people who are in their 20s or 30s, people who are your viewers, your audience, that they get something out of being in an office? Like there is mentorship, there's like even collegialness with, like having friends in the office. Like my friend's like, I don't want to be on social apps. I want to just like meet someone in the office. I'm like, okay, well, you got to go in then.
Yeah, I mean, so I graduated basically into the pandemic, so I didn't really have a regular work experience. I was in the office for a couple months, and then the pandemic happened, and I've never been back. And I think for me, like that's okay. But I think for a lot of people, there it is. If you're working from home, you just miss out on the mentorship, and you miss out on, leadership. You miss out on the subtleties of how to like talk to people in a corporate way. That was something I spent a lot of time learning about when I first joined, and I was in the office for just a couple months. Is like, it's a totally different language, and you only kind of learn it when you're around those people. And so I do think that the younger generation misses having that opportunity to have the older generation invest in them. And I think there's actually been a lot of issues with the older generation, some parts of it, like refusing to invest in younger people. That's been a trend that I've noticed. And so I think that there is a lot of benefits to return to office, but like, of course, people don't want to go back. Like liminal lighting is one of the worst things we've ever done. Offices, the open office space concept, there's studies coming out that it's terrible. Like,
kidding. I mean, oh my God. I mean, if you work in a newsroom, Mark and I have worked in newsrooms, and it's like, it's open, and like you hear people like having very personal, but also like you want to have like a conversation with someone you're interviewing, and it's like you hear someone shrieking in the background, and it's not good. It's not good. Like your crap is bleeding out all over the place. Not good for anybody, frankly. I'm sort of like a door is a good thing. Like it's a very nice thing. What do you think that we need to focus on as good members of the economy? If you want to focus on a few data points, what are your biggies that you really think people should understand that they should just get their arms around, just to make them feel like at least more connected to the economy in a real way?
I think that understanding inflation and like understanding deflation, and that there's a difference between the two, is really important. I think a lot of times people hear inflation is going down, and they're like, prices are still expensive. I think there's number one, the issue with rates and levels there, but then there's also an issue with like deflation versus inflation and disinflation. So I think that's kind of a good place for people to start. I also think just revisiting supply and demand is really important. I think that that's oftentimes something that people struggle a little bit with. You can look at like the advocation for price controls is one example of, a lesson on supply and demand might be pretty good there. And so I would say that's a good one. And then I think just the understanding the labor force and like the cyclicality of it is key. Like, tech and finance were in recessions, but like hospitality and healthcare weren't. And what does that mean for like your career prospects? That is key as well. Yeah.
I loved when just going back to supply and demand, like a year ago, I came off the set and one of the producers was like, why are prices at restaurants so high? And I looked at him and I said, because you keep eating out.
Yeah, right.
That's why. Yeah. Stop it. Just stop. Yeah. And then that was such a weird part. I mean, talk about the experiment of confining people for 12, 24 months and then unleashing the desire to like be human beings and go out and have fun. And, all of that being said, like at some point you look at a menu and you're like, this is dumb. I don't care what's happening in the economy. I'm not eating out as much. Yeah. But that took a way longer time, I think, than we would have thought. I think people are pulling back a little bit more. I mean, look, maybe if you're rich and you're going out to dinner, you don't care. But even rich people I know who are like, you know what? I don't even really feel good about a $40 entree. That's not like making me happy. So I need to do something else, or I'm going to cook at home. It doesn't mean it's cheap, but it's certainly cheaper.
Right.
And so that's the idea of like supply, demand, and prices. So Kyla, is there a last word that you want to leave us with about in this economy or about anything else that's going on that you want to tell people, like give us a good, optimistic, hopeful message to end?
One of my favorite quotes is from James Baldwin, and it's a paraphrase, but essentially the idea is that everything that we've ever lived through, somebody's written about it before. Like no story is truly unique. And I really like that, because I think in times of immense uncertainty, if you can look to literature and if you can look to art for hope, I think it's like one of the most beautiful things that we can do, because not only does it reconnect us with other humans, but it also can reconnect us with ourselves. And so that's what I would leave you with, is like, there is still hope out there.
If you've got a question about the economy or anything else going on in your life, just go to JillOnMoney.com and click the Contact Us button. We'll be right back. You're back. It's Jill on Money. And before we conclude the program, let's take an email. And this is from Ida. And I love this question because we receive this all the time. What simple investing advice would you give young people just starting jobs and wanting to enter the market? First of all, I would probably get a young person Kyla Scanlon's book, In This Economy. It really is a helpful way to frame so much of what's going on, not just in the economy, but in the market. So that's number one. Number two, I would always emphasize what I like to call the big three. So much of our financial consternation is roiled up because we haven't addressed three big issues. Number one, establishing an emergency reserve fund with 6 to 12 months of your living expenses in a safe, kind of boring account. That could be a short-term CD. It could be a money market account. It could be a high-yield savings account. That's your number one. Your number two is paying down debt. That might be student loans. That might be credit cards. Or maybe it's an expensive car loan. But do pay that off. And number three is to maximize to the best of your ability your retirement plan contribution. So if you're just starting out and you want to invest, maybe use your company retirement plan. Or if you've got a teacher's retirement plan, use that. Or you're working for a municipality, put the money in there. First, start by targeting the match. If you don't have a match, do the best you can. And eventually you want to max out to the federal limit, which is 23 grand. I know that's hard, so you're probably not going to do that right away. If you don't have a plan through work, open up a Roth IRA and fund that to the best of your ability. Those are the big three items, so check those out. Well, okay, that is it. That is our program. I can't believe it's gone by so quickly. Our music is composed by Joel Goodman. Mark Talercio is our executive producer, and Webb King. Try to lift someone up today. It's going to make that person feel good, and it is going to make you feel really good. Change your work, change your wealth, change your life. Thank you for listening, and we'll talk to you next week.